Hello everyone, welcome to the course on Ruby on Rails. In this course, you will learn about introduction to Ruby on Rails, configuring MySQL connection, understanding of CRUD operation, creating basic API using Ruby on Rails, integration of Ajax with Ruby on Rails, and finally creating login web application using Ruby on Rails. Let me quickly walk you all through what is Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is one of the most effective ways to create web apps quickly, and it's highly relevant and in demand in the modern economy. Within this course, you will learn to set up Ruby on Rails, why to use Ruby on Rails, learn the architecture of Ruby on Rails, you will learn to install and set up MySQL, understand how to connect Rails application to MySQL database, what is active record migration, understand the Rails migration and Rails validation, understand the CRUD operations. You will also learn the Ajax implementation and how Ajax works, understand how to create basic API in Ruby on Rails, and also learn about web API. Further, you will learn to create login web application using Ruby on Rails. So for whom is this course actually going to benefit? Firstly, the web developers, then full stack developers, and then also Ruby on Rails developer. So what is the prerequisites that you need for this course? You need to have basic knowledge on HTML, basic understanding on CRUD operations, knowledge of CSS, and also knowledge on JavaScript. Let me quickly walk you all through the lessons and practices that we have planned for you in this course. The first lesson is Introduction to Ruby on Rails. Here you have 5 practice lessons. First one is to install and set up Node.js, then Yarn package, SQLite 3, Sublime Text IDE, and lastly you will also learn to install and set up Ruby. The second lesson is configuring MySQL connection. Here you have 3 practice lessons. First one is installing and configuring MySQL, connecting MySQL database using MySQL to GEM, and lastly understanding active record migration. The third lesson is understanding CRUD operation in Ruby on Rails. Here in the practice lesson you will actually perform a CRUD operation. The fourth lesson you will learn how to create basic API using Ruby on Rails, and in this practice you will learn how to build API with Ruby on Rails. The fifth lesson is integrating Ajax with Ruby on Rails. Here in the practice you will learn how to perform the delete action using Ajax functionality. And the last and the most interesting one is creating login web application using Ruby on Rails. And in this practice you will actually build a login web app in Ruby on Rails. And the practice environment that you need here is the command prompt and Sublime Text. Let me quickly summarize again the lessons that you are going to learn in this course. Firstly, the introduction to Ruby on Rails, configuring MySQL connection, understanding of CRUD operation, creating basic API using Ruby on Rails, integration of Ajax with Ruby on Rails, and creating login web application using Ruby on Rails. Let's quickly get into the interesting lessons. Hope you all enjoy. Thank you.